am American Airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am an American Airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail.
We are back to the Back and Forth Air Force Recruiting Services only live stream. I am joined by Senior Master Sergeant Johnson as my new co-host today. We are just trying all kinds of co-hosts, but I'm super excited that we at least get to both be back in the studio. I am not out of town this week, so I don't have to worry about Wi-Fi. Fingers crossed, not about Wi-Fi. So we have got cool show today. We've actually done something similar to this in the past, but we had a ton of interaction with it, and we want to dive deeper down the hole of all things waivers. And if you're trying to figure out like what part of the Air Force does waivers have to do with, pseudofolliculitis barbae. If you've ever heard of that, that means you probably are aware of the kind of waiver that might mean. That comes to do with beards, specifically people with like super curly, thick hair.
Thank God for those Latin classes, huh?
I thought we weren't going to talk about that. First thing on the mic, and she's making fun of me. Okay.
We're in it
It was
now.
in high school. It was a long time ago. To be fair, pseudofolliculitis barbae takes a lot longer to remember how to say than I probably spent paying attention in Latin class. So I guess there's that. But anyway, we're going to jump down the rabbit hole of all things waivers today. And joining us are going to be our amazing guests. And I can push that button. There we go. Hey, guys, we have got down in the bottom left of your screen Tech Sergeant Smith and Tech Sergeant Neff. We will get to introductions here in a little bit. And then we also have Major Catrine down in the right-hand side. Also, before we jump into our guests, I'm going to have Senior Master Sergeant Johnson introduce herself and let you guys know a little bit about her. Ma'am, go for it.
Thanks. So thanks a million for coming, for inviting me to be on the show. Appreciate it. I've watched it a bunch of times. Love the back and forth. It's very, very cool. I love the intro. Talk about like, whoo, fired up for that intro, huh? Like we're just killing it. So so I am Senior Master Sergeant Autumn Rose Johnson. I am the Air National Guard Special Warfare Recruiting Program Manager. It's a heck of a title. So it's my rank, my first name, my last name, the title. It's all long. It's ridiculous. My business cards and my end of my email is like 16 pages at the end of it.
I see that okay, so it's Senior Master. I'm going to pull it back up and then I'll bring it back over there. But your name says Senior, so SMSGT. Autumn Rose, that's your one first name?
All first name, yep. And then my middle name is Clark. Johnson is the last. It's so much,
Autumn
right?
Rose Clark Johnson.
It's so
Your
much.
parents liked you a lot more than my parents liked me.
My parents are, I think, we're just
I got
they're
Greg.
extra. I just had a lot of extra. We're a lot of extra in everything. So
They knew that my name would become memeable sometime down the road. Now Greg is just like that super bland guy that's in the meme. When you're like, oh yeah, the man, the myth, the legend, it turns out it's just some guy named Greg. Like, that's an actual meme right now. And I'm just like, yeah, Autumn Rose is way cooler.
Autumn Rose, yeah, it's like fresh, right?
All right, Sergeant Smith, Sergeant Neff, you guys will have to play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to go first, but it's all on you. Why don't you introduce yourselves? Oh, no, I'd be down. Sudden death. Rock, paper, scissors.
No, you go first.
Do it.
Go for it.
So I
man.
am Technical Sergeant Smith. I am the Air Force Line Officer Program Manager. I'm here to speak on the officers, how to get waivers if you want to join as an officer.
Yeah, and I'm Sergeant Neff. Basically going to cover the same topics, but for the enlisted accession side.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, thanks for taking time out of your day and being with us on the show. It's really cool to have both sides of the house represented in the same office, officers and enlisted. So it sounds like we're covering some pretty good ground here. Major Catrine, why don't you introduce yourself for everyone, please? Thank you.
All right, so I am Major Catrine. I work in physical standards in recruiting operations, and I help process medical waivers. So I'm a medical waiver liaison for operations to the waiver authority. So I can help discuss just a teensy bit about any medical waiver questions that y'all might have.
Awesome. And thank you to you for taking time out of your afternoon and joining us again on the show. I don't know, have we had a repeat guest before? I don't think so.
She's the first offender.
Major Catrine.
Ooh,
first
gold
repeat
star.
guest. Yeah, we've had repeat hosts, but yeah, let's do it. I got it. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so what would you guys say is the most common waiver that you see come through? Anybody can take
All right. So I'm a stats guy. I went and pulled some stats ready for this question.
Okay.
Turns out our biggest waiver is a morals waiver, um, and
That's
it
a
is
thing.
for possession of marijuana.
Oh, we actually talked about marijuana possessions and charges before on the show. So walk me through that. Like, what's that look like, and how do your typical applicants react when they find out there's a waiver for something like that?
I think it's a big deal. It's a fairly serious offense, but whenever you look at the context of these cases, when you get the court documents, you're actually going through all the details, you can tell that it may not be as serious as the crime states or as we have it outlined in our regulations. So that's where these waivers come in, because it gives that recruiting squadron commander that opportunity to take that look at you as a person, that holistic concept, and say, is this person going to be fit to fight in our Air Force or
Sure.
Space Force? And a lot of times for these specific charges, they have a high approval rating, depending on the underlying circumstances and if there was any other offenses involved.
Sure. So it sounds like if you do have a run-in with a charge from a substance, it's probably a good idea to go talk to a recruiter if you want to join, because there might be a waiver out there for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. All right. Anybody else have a differing one, or are you all on agreement that it's all moral waivers? Because I thought it was like beards or something.
Right.
Well,
I
I will add on that for medical waivers, your eye diagnoses are usually your most common waivers. So your
Gotcha.
astigmatism, any sort of cornea diagnosis. So eye waivers for sure in the medical realm take the cake.
Okay, cool. So eye waivers and medical waivers, or not medical waivers, morals waivers specifically for marijuana.
I would say on the officer side. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, they're okay. That's okay, because I'm thinking like anything that has anything to do with marijuana and eyes. Isn't that like a glaucoma prescription? How many times is that a waiver that we're actually like linking together? I don't know. Maybe it's not.
It's a 10% VA claim.
There you go. Oh, perfect.
I'm lying. It's not.
On the officer side, what we see most of are people that previously were trying to go through ROTC, or basically trying to commission through another branch. They would need a waiver to come into the officer side. And it's a really easy waiver. It's just basically saying that they no longer have a commitment to, let's say, if they went to ROTC and things like that. That's typically what we get on our side.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, does anybody want to share a story about maybe like a waiver that was surprising? I'll just say that. So for me and Mr. Carbajal, who's helping produce the show from the background, in Major Lane from the background's place, we're going to see if we can buy him back. He's retiring, and we're just going to see if we can like convince him to come host the shows on Tuesdays. But anyway, so before the show started, we were talking back there, and we were both really surprised when we were chatting with some of our guests that morals waivers were as prevalent as they are, that they were even a thing. So was there anything that when you guys found out about that was a shock for you or that you were surprised by?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I got a couple stories. Yeah,
Right.
recruiter, you always got stories tucked away in your
Sure.
back pocket.
Sure.
And just this possession of marijuana brings to mind one specific. I had a young gentleman trying to join. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was in the back seat of a friend's car. Car was loaded with friends. Friend got pulled over. He had an ounce of weed in his pocket. The driver did. Sure. Whenever the cops searched him, found the ounce of weed, and for that state, everybody in the car got charged, and they were all found guilty of possession of marijuana.
Get a little guilty by association takes the worst case scenario. Yeah,
pretty much. Rough. So like, really, it was just wrong place, wrong time, and I really felt for this individual. I felt like he was an awesome human being, really deserving of a chance to serve. So we put his package together, sent it up, and it got approved, and he's serving our Air Force today. I'm just very, very thankful that we do have opportunities like these waivers set
And that's
forth.
the greatest thing about the waivers, right, guys? I mean, like, that's the whole purpose of it, is to be able to give opportunities to people that, you know, otherwise you would have thought maybe wouldn't have had those opportunities, or they think that they don't have those opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is, demystifying those myths of saying, hey, you can't do this, or, Jimmy down the street told me, I got flat feet and I can't come in, and just being able to have those conversations and going to the real source, right? So as we know, who are the real sources, team? Who's the real sources?
The recruiters.
That's it, right?
Yep.
The recruiters are the real sources. So we are the subject matter experts for that. We're not the gatekeepers, we're the dream makers, right? And so we're in the business of saying yes, one way or another, of trying to make those things happen. And that's that biggest piece. That's why we have these waivers. Not everybody is going to meet a little box, right? Everyone's not going to hit that little box. We got to be able to get that in there. And I love that. And I love that you took that opportunity for that individual, and you saw that, hey, this person, they may be a civilian right now, but this could be one of my brothers in arms, and they deserve to wear the uniform. They deserve to put the work in, and they deserve to do that, and that is something really incredible about this recruiting piece that we get to do. And we have that opportunity that we do have waivers in place that we can take chances on them, we can take chances on them, and then let the powers that be make those final decisions.
Yeah. 100%. So what percentage would you say, and anybody can answer this one, even our recruiters on the call, what percentage of applicants are you seeing waivers from? Like what percent of applicants actually need a waiver and get them?
So I pulled this as well. 26% of all of our sessions for this fiscal year have required a waiver. 20% of those required a medical waiver, and the other 6% were other types of waivers. So that's a pretty big chunk.
Dang. That is so 1 in 4. I was expecting it to be somewhere between 5 and 10%, and I'm not a recruiter, so I'm not familiar with that information, but 1 in 4, right? That's a pretty big number. If you're in a situation where you're not 100% sure if your current issues or your current medical stuff or whatever the case is would be something the military will consider, 1 in 4 people is just like you, and they got in. So yeah.
And it's so important right now. I mean, we're in such a pivotal moment in time with our military recruiting. We need these waivers more than ever. We need to reduce these barriers to service everywhere we can, and our leaders are doing their absolute best to get after that.
I would like to piggyback on that. What I tell a lot of my applicants is do not be discouraged if you have a morals waiver. So a morals waiver is kind of like if you've ever been charged, arrested, cited, held for questioning with the law enforcement or any of that nature. So we have different categories as a morals waiver. So you have category 1, which is like an aggravated assault with a weapon. You don't typically want those, but that's okay. And then we have things just as small as a running a speeding ticket.
Gotcha.
Because you have a morals, something happened, right? And you may need a waiver. Do not be discouraged in submitting your application or applying, because not everyone is perfect. Right. And you can learn from those mistakes. And I'm just speaking on any side, really. You want to, eventually we're all going to become leaders, right? You can, as soon as you come into the Air Force, Airman basic, you can still be a leader all the way up to a chief or a general. You can be a leader. When you make those mistakes, you can lead your airmen, big A, to, yes, I've made a mistake, but this is what I've done to change. So I always let people know that no one's perfect in here, and please do not be discouraged to submit your application to try to join the Air Force.
Yeah, we had a specific female who had a history. She had a DUI that she was found guilty of. And our squadron commander said, I'll approve this, but it's going to be stipulated, right? When you get into the Air Force, you're going to tell your story. You're going to teach these airmen about the lessons learned that you had in your civilian life, to make sure that the airmen that you're leading in our Air Force don't make those same mistakes. And again, it's huge, that opportunity.
Yeah, because that can be something that has an impact on your life that's so profoundly negative that can ruin opportunities. And she was able to turn that around, and he saw something in her where he could take that and use it as a teaching point. And I bet you some of the stuff that she was able to share made a big impact, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, she's
so
doing-
what would you guys think about, like, we got like 17, 18-year-old folks that are looking for that information, and they know, maybe they do know that they would need a waiver, whether it be medical or a morals waiver, but they might be nervous to tell the recruiter or talk to a recruiter about it. Do you guys have any source of information of where folks can get some information about what is waiverable, what's not waiverable?
That's
You
a
guys
good
have
question.
anything out there?
That's a great question.
It's tough because, a lot of the information that we put out there as an Air Force, it is the standard, right? We put out our education standards, our ASVAB standards, our medical standards you can see floating around out there. We don't necessarily put our waiver criteria on display, and that's mainly because it is so case by case. We do want to take that holistic approach whenever we're looking at that individual, and not just draw a line in the sand on what's okay and what's not okay. And so if you're nervous about talking to that recruiter, there's always other methods of reaching a recruiter that might not be just going into the office. Airforce.com offers a lot of different opportunities to talk online with some professionals who are smart in those areas and can give you some education. But really, I mean, if you can muster up the braveness to go and talk to that Air Force recruiter, I really, really encourage. Going to have all the answers that you're really looking for and be able to tell you up front, okay, hey, I see your concerns about, your medical history, your concerns about your criminal history, but there may be other underlying factors that play a role in your enlistment eligibility. You may be underweight and you have to gain weight in order to be considered. So it's just good to go in there and talk to that recruiter so they can just measure you entirely.
Right.
So that way, whenever you walk out of that recruiter's office, you're equipped and ready to move forward, whether it's be like, okay, I need to go do this, this, and this if I want to be able to join, or, hey, the recruiter said that there's really no chance for me even without a waiver. I'm not going to be eligible for one. But it's important to have that conversation with the recruiter to get that up front.
I agree.
How do you guys think we can, as a team, right, as a recruiting team, total force integration, how can we take forth some of those myths, right? Like I was just using an example, like the flat feet piece. Remember back in the day, flat feet can't come in, asthma can't come in, all of these things can't come in. And people still have this mentality and this, oh, my grandpa told me or so-and-so told me. What do you think we can do as an entity and an enterprise that we can do to really squash that information and get true information and accurate information out there to these folks that need it? What would your suggestion be? Magic wand.
I mean, it's tough, but it really comes down to outreach. Just making sure that we have a presence everywhere, so we're informing and educating every chance that we get. I know I try to spend whatever downtime I get on social media platforms, and I see people posting questions like, hey, here's my situation, what do you all think? And I try to get in there and squash the bad info. And you'll see other recruiters trying to do the same, just trying to encourage that positive behavior and that exchange of truthful information. So I just think we got to do more of that, and on a wider scale.
Outreach, as
Gotcha.
far as, just like you said, just getting out there in the schools, getting out there with different associations, whether it's in college, just trying our hardest to get the word out. I mean, that's
Yeah.
my suggestion.
Yeah.
I
So
I
that's
would piggyback off of that and just say like the recruiters using their personal stories, because I've heard time and time again recruiters have one or two applicants that they just remember inside and out, and it was a special case to them. And so whether it be that person got a waiver, whether it be that person didn't get a waiver, telling their story and telling their point of view, I think will also allow other applicants to put themselves in those shoes and be like, okay, well, hey, I have that diagnosis and that person got a waiver, so maybe there's a chance for me, versus just shutting down and saying, oh, well, I have flat feet, so I can't join. Well, no, that's not the case, right? There's a whole review that needs to go into effect before someone is determined qualified or not qualified for military service. So I think just putting those personal stories out there will help as well.
I agree.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And Sergeant Nuff had made a perfect comment about that, telling that story of that young woman who came in with a morals issue, and then it was her responsibility to take forth and bring that information out, right? When we were in between, before we started going live, we were all discussing and kind of talking about things and teaching the non-recruiters that there's moral waivers, and it's not just one little box, right? There's a million different waivers. And we had talked about, in the faulty piece, even as a recruiter, I had a young man who came to me and he had childhood leukemia. And I was like, yeah, like leukemia, cancer, like you're 100% going to be disqualified. Like that's not going to happen. But I didn't say no to him because that's not my job as a recruiter to say no to folks. My job is to pre-qualify people, determine their eligibility, and to then process them and let the powers that be, the medical professionals, to go through that process and either disqualify them or qualify them, and keep pushing that forward if need be. And so again, unbeknownst to me, here I am thinking this is never going to happen. This is a waste of time. I don't even know why I'm doing anything with this young man. Lo and behold, 4 years later, this young man became Airman of the Year in his wing. So,
Nice.
Continuously still serving, right? So, and he wanted it. He wanted to serve, and he wasn't going to take no. And he wasn't going to take no from me, which I was even more impressed that he wasn't going to take no from me, and he kept pushing forward. So that's my also advice to any folks that are out there listening. Don't take no for an answer, right? If that's something that you want, don't take no for an answer. If you're trying to earn this uniform, earn it. Don't take no.
We like
keep
tenacity.
pressing.
Yeah.
Keep pressing.
Yep, 100%. So we don't normally do a whole lot of stuff from the comment section this early in the show, although we will get there. And when we get to the back and forth part where we interact with everybody in the comments, if you do have a question, make sure that you put Q in front of your question so we know and we can separate them as such. But I did see somebody mentioned that our audio levels were off. I got to take the heat on that one. I was messing with the wrong lever, and there's like this little switch down here, and I pushed it the wrong way. Actually, I hit the right direction. I just hit the wrong channel. So hopefully we've got it better for you now, and everybody sounds about the same. If not, keep telling me how to do it in the comments, and I'll keep my eye over there. But when we do get to that part, which we're probably there in probably, 4 or 5 minutes, keep the comments coming in, and if it is a question, put them up with a Q first, and we will get to them very soon. Promise. I had one written down. I don't know where it went. Nope. I don't like that one. Nope. I'm
going to ask a question to the major, okay? So how many different levels of approval for waivers are there, and approximately how long does it take?
So that's kind of a I don't want to say a loaded question, but there is one waiver authority, right? So there is the waiver authority within AFRS, and they are the approval authority for all accession medical waivers for the Air Force. Within them, though, there are different entities that they can reach out to for consultation, right? So they can go to Air Force consult. So like if someone has, for instance, eczema, and it's a really complicated case, this person has new medications, what have you, so they may reach out to the Air Force dermatologist and get their opinion on it. Likewise with an eye case, if someone had LASIK and had some complications, they may reach out to the Air Force optometrist, different specialists within the Air Force. They can also reach out to AFMERA, so the Air Force Medical Readiness Agency, and they can get their opinion on medical waivers as well. So as far as who's the approval authority, it is RSG, the Medical Accession Waiver Authority within AFRS. How long it takes, though, that goes into what I was saying about going to different consultants, right? So right now, when someone is disqualified at MEPS and their waiver is sent forward, usually the waiver authority can take their initial look within about 10 days, right? And that's just the initial look. That is just a review. They may be able to make a determination at that time. They may not. They may ask for an additional consult for more information, or they may ask for additional records that were missed the first time. When it gets kicked back, it's kind of variable what that timeline is. It's all dependent on when the consult can be got, when the applicant can get their pharmacy records. There's a lot of variables that they don't have control over. However, once it is submitted back, again, it's about a 10-day wait period for a second review. If they can make a determination at that time, then great. If they have to send it out for a consult or specialist review, then that adds on more time. If they have to go to AFMIR, that adds on more time. They also have different levels of review within the waiver authority. So you have your case managers, and then you have the physicians at the waiver authority who do the more complicated cases. So if the case manager can disposition it, great. If it has to go to a physician, it takes a little bit more time. So what I'm getting at is it is a variable length for a waiver review process, but for each review that the waiver authority touches, it's about a 10-day turnaround time. So I know kind of a convoluted answer, but hopefully that helped answer your question.
No, Major, so that's actually a perfect answer, right? Because what you just did was you painted the picture that waivers, no matter what they are, whether they're medical or whether they're morals, it doesn't matter. There's no cookie cutter answer for the waivers, right? Yep. So this is why our recruiters also cannot give a cookie cutter answer when we are asked a direct question about certain waivers, right? We cannot give direct answer. It's going to be this long. It's going to be this, because there are so many variables with that. So I love that you answered it like that. It was I felt like I was looping you in to answer it perfectly, and you did, to show and paint that picture to the folks that are online, and to see, hey, nobody is the same, right? Yeah. Like, everyone's going to have a completely different process. So with that being said, please remember, when you are going through that process, just because it was someone else's experience does not mean it's going to be yours. So please do not, and no one is going to be emulating someone else's process. You have your own story, you have your own history, medical history, your personal history, all of those things. So your timeline could be very different from your buddy's timeline. So please remember that, and when you're going through that process. So thanks, Major. That was a perfect answer. Thanks, ma'am.
Yeah, and I just want to key in on, there's a lot of information to wrap your head around there, and a lot of different things that you may be facing. Step one, and we say it all the time, but it is kind of the whole point of this show.
Talk to your recruiter.
Go talk to your recruiter. Like, that is step one. They will put you in contact with the people that will get all the requirements for you. They'll tell you exactly what you need to bring in. That way you're not having to take pages and pages of notes from this show. I would love it if you did, but the step number one is go talk to a recruiter, and there are a ton of resources out there. You've got those ones. That's not it. It's these ones. There's the QR code. You've got the Aim High app. You've got the 1-800 number and airforce.com. Cool thing about airforce.com, there is a recruiter locator feature in there where you just punch in where you're at, and it'll show you a whole list of different types of recruiters, and you get to pick which one you're interested in, and it'll point you directly toward the closest one near you. Go talk to those guys. And they'll be able to help you through the next questions. Hopefully we help you get to yes, or at least step one of yes here on the show. And you're like, okay, maybe there's a shot. Maybe there's a chance I can go do this. Then you go talk to your recruiter. They'll take the rest of the information. They'll go from there. And maybe you become one of those one of four. So, all right. I think it's probably about part time of the show where we get to the questions and answers from the audience out there. We no longer have to rely on pieces of paper. We get to read them directly off the screen. So we're going to kick over to the questions that we've got. We're going to kick over to the questions that we've got, and we're going to get started and see how many we can work through in the next, hour or so. All right, let's see if we got the first question up. Can I get a waiver if I have asthma at 14 years old? I recently took a pulmonary function test stating that I don't have asthma. That one's outside of my expertise, so I'll let anybody take that one.
I would assume that would fall to me.
There you go. Have at it.
So yes, asthma is a very common medical disqualification at MEPS, and it is one that is waived pretty frequently, but it really depends on the applicant themselves. As was stated earlier, no case is exactly the same, right? So this applicant, or this question saying that they had asthma at the age of 14, immediately they're probably going to get disqualified at MEPS, because per the DOTI, which is the medical standards used for all military branches, it states if you have asthma after the age of 13, or if you have an inhaler after the age of 13, then you're going to get disqualified, right?
Sure.
However, that doesn't mean you won't get a waiver. So good on this person for getting a PFT, but again, that's something we would have to look at. Like, we need to interpret it ourselves and look at the pharmacy records, look at the entire past medical history related to asthma, and see if they could get a waiver. There is a chance of getting a waiver. It's not a complete no, but we would have to look at that case individually.
But it sounds like it's not always no. There's a possibility.
It's not always no.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, if I was this person's recruiter, I would absolutely push for him. Absolutely.
Cool. So I've got a question that I'm kind of curious to know, and this might be pretty pointed, so tell me just to not ask the question, but how much does an individual recruiter get to decide that they get to be personally invested in someone's fight to get them to the Air Force?
We say in our procedural guidance that waivers can be disapproved at any level.
Okay.
But like Sergeant Johnson said, it's not really our role to do that. We are advocates for the people that we believe in. My commander, when I first became a recruiter, put it really elegantly. He said, if you have an applicant that you can imagine yourself serving beside, then fight for them. And that's always been my mindset. If somebody's coming in and they have a history of asthma, but they ran track in high school and they're telling me they took this pulmonary function test and that said that it's good to go, I'm going to put in the effort to see this thing through to get to the yes or no from the powers that be.
100%. That's really cool.
That's my job as a recruiter. That's what I'm responsible for.
Yeah. And I kind of, as a personal mission for me on this show also, is I always try to make sure that we at least have one recruiter on the show, because we have subject matter experts from all kinds of different fields. But I'd like to have a recruiter because we say that almost every single show. Go talk to your recruiter. If you have questions like this, go talk to your recruiter. They'll be able to get you to more answers that look like yes, that look in your favor and can help you achieve this dream. But also to lay to rest a lot of the rumors out there that have been circulating for years. You know, my recruiter, you can't trust recruiters. They're just trying to sell you something. No, like that's not the point. There's so much to offer. And we were talking about it before the show. There's actually stuff that people don't even realize that you take advantage of before you even sign the line. You know, people that are like, hey, I'm worried because I'm overweight, like blah, blah, blah. How much weight do I have to lose before I can join the military? I'm like, if you went and talked to your recruiter, get on airforce.com, find that recruiter near you, go talk to him. They're not only going to tell you what that goal weight is, they've got like endless resources on tap right there to help you reach those goals. And you don't have to sign anything. Like, you're not committed to anything. Now you're just in a challenge to yourself, and this person's going to help you along the way. And if they can keep giving you those kind of assistance and those kind of, that kind of thing, I just think that's a really cool way to like start the tempo for the rest of that career of what it feels like to have a mentor in the Air Force and stuff like that. I think it's just really powerful, and it's important that we dispel those rumors that these guys are just salesmen just out there trying to get people in the military. So
get a recruiter in your corner. Get someone who's willing to fight for you and your future and your career. I mean, that's ultimately what we're here for.
I do want to piggyback on that. So as recruiters, we do have autonomy to work with applicants, but it's also up to you to put in the effort, to put in the work. So then we can, advocate for you, so we can go ahead and push our applications for your waivers to be submitted. A lot of times, especially when we have those applicants, if we're like, hey, we need your pharmacy records, or we need these documents to submit your application, and you're submitting them like the next day, oh, that's a recruiter's dream. Like, because we know that you want it. You got to want it just as much as we do, right? So you have to make sure that you put in that effort as well.
Yeah, I used to tell him I couldn't want it more, actually. Like, I can't want this more than you. Like, I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to work super hard for you. You are my customer, but I can't want this more than you. I'm going to do everything I can to get you in, but if you're not there, you're just not there.
Right. And you can tell when somebody's fighting for something. Just like you can tell when you're being sold something. If it sounds too good to be true, or if you can tell that person is just not interested in interacting with you, I can understand that from a recruiter's perspective, where it makes it really hard to go above and beyond for someone who's not returning the favor. If they're not really putting in the effort, then that autonomy can be, you can't be faulted too much there. So bring your A game, want it, be relentless, and talk to your recruiter and bring them what they need, and we'll see if we can make it work. I had to jump over to Sergeant Johnson there because Major Cattrain just disappeared, and I was like, oh no, quick, jump away.
So I just wanted to catch one thing, because how we were talking about like how the processes are, right? So even adjusting with the the person that just went on for the question, talking about when you had asthma at 14 years old and, you know, did a pulmonary and all of this. So what the first process is that, of course, as always, you're going to talk to your recruiter, right? So talk to your recruiter, and then what they're going to do is they're going to do a pre-eligibility, right? They're going to take all of that information, and then they're going to submit it to MEPS. So MEPS is considered the Military Entrance Processing Station, all right? So that is where everybody in the Department of Defense goes, right? We use so many acronyms within the Air Force that we forget what these processes are, and that we're talking, and that we're talking to, you know, folks. We're talking to layman folks that may not know what these are. So you're going to go through the Military Entrance Processing Station, and that is where you are going to meet with a doctor, right? So you're going to meet with a Department of Defense doctor that works for the MEPCOM, right? The MEPCOM unit. And so they're going to review your records, and they're going to say, hey, you're either qualified or you're disqualified. Now, if you're disqualified, that does not mean that game is over, okay? So that's what we're talking about with this waiver process when it comes to medical. Yeah. Game is not over. We had a pause for a hot quick minute, and then we're going to slide over and we're going to keep playing on a different field. That's all it is. And so we're then, as your recruiter, when I say we, I mean the recruiters, we're then going to take your medical records, and we are going to say whatever additional things that they wanted to say, hey, you did have a pulmonary, or we're going to request a new pulmonary. And then we're going to submit that to the Surgeon General's waiver division. And then that is the higher entity that's going to say, hey, you're good or you're no good. And then you're golden. Then that's how we're gonna go through. So that's that process that we're talking about. And I feel like we didn't kind of talk about that process to let folks know that overall that's what we're doing.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for clarifying. All right, I'm seeing some great questions come through. Let's get to the next one.
Oh, that would be me.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. What about psoriasis waivers? Gotta love those skin diseases, guys.
Oh, it's on the screen here.
Oh,
sorry, we just popped it up on the bottom and it
yep.
snuck in there.
It snuck in there. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Oh, wait, hit it again. Where'd it go?
One more
All right,
time.
there it is. All right, the question is, for medical waiver, is it possible to make contact with SG's office earlier in the process to help save time in obtaining a medical waiver? Meaning, can they contact the SG's office?
That would fall to me as well. It looks. No, okay. I thought I was frozen for a minute. Sorry. So, yes and no. Yes, you can make contact to SG through my specific office, but it is through your recruiter, right? So it's your recruiter who needs to contact us, and the recruiter can contact their flight chief, the Linko, whoever they need to contact. But ultimately, the inquiry will come through us, which is the physical standards office within recruiting operations, as we are the field or the recruiter's liaison to SG's office. We work very, very closely with them. We contact them every day, all day, every day. So in order to help save time, I hesitate. I guess I'm a little bit confused because that could mean a whole bunch of different things, saving time for medical waivers. And in fact, I feel like that's what my office has been focused on for the past couple of years, at least. And there are many resources that recruiters can use to help save time for medical waivers. That's kind of what we're here for in operations, is to help guide the recruiters to cut down that time. Sure. But long story short, if you have questions, contact your recruiter, and the recruiter can contact who they need to contact to, including my office, for any questions they may have about the medical waiver process.
And while
if we're talking about, like, if you're the applicant or the person questioning you, like, I know I have a disqualifying condition. I'm dealing with asthma right now, if that's the case. That's where these experienced recruiters, they are equipped with that information and that knowledge and that experience to say, hey, I've done this a dozen times in the past. This is exactly what the Surgeon General is going to request from you. So let's go ahead and get that up front now. So that way, whenever they do get it, it's easy breezy and we can go straight from there. So there really wouldn't be a need to contact the SG directly. Your recruiter should be equipped with that expertise.
There'll be plenty of homework for you to do, and bring, like I said earlier, bring your A game and make sure that you're ready to go find any documentation or supporting stuff that your recruiter needs. But they'll know exactly what they need from you, because it's their day job. That's what they do. So trust your recruiter, and they'll tell you exactly what you need. Next question. Can I join with a moral waiver and still be applicable for OCS? Great question.
All right. That is for me. Yes. So just because you
Easy.
have a morals waiver does not mean that you can't apply as an officer. So
Does it
So you
depend
should be
on
good to
the
go.
offenses at all?
Hmm.
Does it depend on the type of offense, like the category or anything?
it depends. It's still going to go through the waiver route, just like
Oh.
enlisted.
Mhm.
But I know some people would think that, oh, well, because I have one waiver, I'm not. I don't know if that's the correct term, but I'm not suitable to be an officer. No, you could still go ahead and submit your waiver.
Okay,
So yes.
cool. That was an easy yes. Let's get to the next one.
Softballs.
Yeah, I don't mind softballs. That keeps them running, and we can actually there.
Here
brought
I
it,
am.
Brought it back
I got,
for you.
I got my psoriasis. Here we go, guys.
right.
Back to the skins. Back to the skins. All right. So psoriasis waivers, skin.
I think this one's back over to Major. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the major. What do we got, man?
Yep. So, all right. So psoriasis. Again, not every case is the same. Sometimes I'll start off by saying applicants have gotten waivers for skin conditions that may or may not be psoriasis, right? So it really depends on the applicant's history, their treatment, basically the entire history of the medical condition itself. If they have active psoriasis at MEPS, chances are you're not getting a waiver, right? If you have active lesions, you're not going to get a waiver. Those need to heal before we can even consider a waiver for you. But if you have to submit the entire clinical history of the diagnosis, the entire treatment history, and that gets looked at individually. And sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. Psoriasis is one of those things. It's a chronic recurrent condition. It's very hard to get fully into remission, and it can flare up in the military. So it is one thing we have to keep in mind when we're looking at this medical condition is the military going to worsen this condition? If the answer is no, then your chances of a waiver go up. If it's a yes, chances go down. So it's not 100% yes, not 100% no, but each case has to be looked at individually.
Are there any career fields in the Air Force that it's automatically a no?
Ooh.
So if there's exemptions for atopic dermatitis or for eczema. And those, I do not know them off the top of my head. I know for one, it's Security Forces Dog Handler Shred Out. I know Battlefield Airman is another AFSC, but I don't recall the other AFSCs. So yes,
Fuels,
atopic dermatitis.
I was trick questioning you because
certain-
I'm the special warfare programs manager for it. So I was trying to I was softballing you. But yeah, so special warfare, you can't have skin diseases, right? So and obviously the reason for that is, as you pointed out, ma'am, that the flare-ups. I also like to explain why sometimes, right? So people understand why we have these certain standards and why they may not be waiverable or why they're disqualifying factors. And skin diseases typically end up being that way because you do have special warfare that they will be sometimes in the middle of the jungle for months, weeks on end. And if they have a skin flare-up, there's no, you just can't, it can't be treated, right? So there's certain things of why they can't be. And skin diseases is one of them.
Sure. Yeah, that can be a little tricky. I can imagine, like, if you've got a flare up and it's the middle of the desert or it's the jungle and you can't. And the thing is like apply cool, dry dressing.
Right.
If you're treating an injury or something like that. Same with a flare up. It's gonna be pretty difficult if it's not cool or dry. So.
Yeah, and I mean, even think of like EOD, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are in these massive, huge
suits. Yeah.
You know, for long term. So yeah.
That's fair. All right, next question. Hi, just jumped on here and I haven't heard the rest of the recording, so I apologize if already asked. I'm trying to apply for JAG. Is there a waiver for past barbaric surgeries? Is that bariatric surgeries? Okay, I'm going to go with bariatric because otherwise we got a whole other conversation we need to have. So bariatric surgeries, I'll take like the very first part of that because on the topic of if the question's been asked before, I don't think the question had been asked yet. But you can catch the whole first half of the show and any of the shows we've done in the past on any one of our platforms. We've got Facebook and YouTube. You can go in there, and in the playlists, the back and forth is listed, and you'll be able to find all of our pre-recorded shows, or not pre-recorded, all of our previously aired shows that we record while they're going live. So right now I could say, hi, future me, and then I'll go back and watch me say, hi, future me. I'll show my kids, and they'll be like, nice, Dad. So old shows, the first half of this show, all that stuff, go find it on Facebook and YouTube. Air Force Recruiting Service is the best way to get there. And now I will turn it back over to the smart people so they can answer the question about not barbaric surgeries.
I want to hear about barbaric surgeries.
I don't. Ma'am, I think this is back to you again, Major.
I was
Next
gonna
time we got to bring in more
barbaric
medical.
surgeries, I would. That sounds very
Yep.
interesting. So, yeah, assuming that was meant to be bariatric surgery, that is one that hardly ever receives a waiver, if at all. Reason being is there's so many complications that can occur after the surgery, specifically like nutritional deficiencies that are really
Sure.
tough to accommodate for when you're downrange or when you're alone by yourself in the jungle, right? Like you can't, how are you going to get the correct meals that you need after having bariatric surgery? So it is one that I would say, again, not 100% no, but it's very, very close to no waiver for that.
Sure. And that makes sense. I mean, there has to be uniformity. We have to be able to apply a rule to a large majority, right? So being able to say exclusively one way or the other can get a little tricky. And we do want to make sure that we can adjust and accept everybody who's a good fit. But sometimes it can be just a little too tricky because, I mean, I wouldn't want to actually have to be the dude downranged with got like a really cool specialized meal loadout when all my buddies don't. I would, yeah, I don't think I'd want to be that person. Because, like, I don't even like being the guy that gets Skittles in his MRE. Like, now I have, like, 7 new best friends, and I just wanted to eat my dinner in peace. So, all right, let's get the next question.
Hello.
Hi.
I am interested in joining the United States Air Force.
Good.
I finished my master's in education, but I don't have a green card yet. This is a great question.
This
Is
is a
there
good question.
any way that I can still join? Thank
First
you.
off, congrats on the Masters.
Yeah, congrats on the
Nice
Masters.
job.
That's huge.
That was for the sound effects comment earlier. I saw somebody throw out some love. They're like, they've got sound effects up in here? Yes, we do. And they gave the control panel to me, so I can just push the button.
Just
Sorry.
throwing beats down.
Sorry.
Just throwing beats down over here. That's all he's doing.
I mean,
You
I
see
had
the-
one in
you
here.
see this whole like, oh wow, okay, we doing it.
see,
we doing
I do-
it.
I
We'll
do have
beatbox
beats.
later. We'll have a Me and the Major are gonna throw down a beatbox competition. All
right.
Okay, so this is for our recruiters. Okay, so green card questions, and obviously this person is highly educated, so I definitely want to hit it with Sergeant Smith as well, our officer subject matter expert. So let's hear it from both of you guys.
Yeah.
So on the officer side, unfortunately, in order to become or to apply to be an officer, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So that's like cut and dry on the officer side.
And then for the enlisted side of the house, as of right now, you do have to be a lawful permanent resident in order to serve in the military. Historically, there have been programs in place to help expedite that process. As of right now, you still have to apply for that permanent residency. And then once you get that green card in hand, then I would start that conversation with the recruiter to at least talk about enlistment options at that point. Once you are enlisted, we can fast track your citizenship. We have a program going on right now where you can get naturalized at BMT, and it's been very, very successful.
Cool.
And then if you have your master's degree in hand, that's just a hop, skip away from applying for a commission at that point.
Yeah. Sounds like that's a great question because it's something that we've been working on and something we've got programs in place that are already active to help people in situations very similar to yours get to potentially being an officer in the United States Air Force, which is really cool. So awesome. Let's do the next one. I'm loving this. This is like a pretty fast pace. Like we've had shows before where we like barely made it through like 6 and there's hundreds of questions there. And I'm like, I feel bad, but these ones we're knocking through them. I like it. I'd like to apply as an officer. However, I am graduated out of the country, but I'm RN here in the U.S. and a U.S. citizen. And I didn't read fast enough. Am I qualified for the officer position? Thank you. I think that one probably falls pretty close to the same, right?
She graduated out of the country.
Yeah.
They
Let's
graduated
see.
out of the country.
RN here in the U.S. and a U.S. citizen. Am I qualified? I was, yeah.
I would say yes.
I mean, barring a
So
bunch of
if
other
you-
potential circumstances.
barring
you put the
whatever her
question up there
educational
again?
certifications are.
Yeah, can we throw it up again real quick? Thanks, Mike.
So she has her. She graduated outside of the country. Out of the country, that's fine, as long as her degree is accredited to our standards. Perfectly
Mm-hmm.
fine. She's an RN and here in the U.S. and you are a U.S. citizen,
Mm-hmm.
you can apply. So we
Cool.
do have positions opening. As long as you have at least a bachelor's degree that is accredited to like the United States standards. I forgot the technical term for it. And you are a U.S. citizen, you can apply.
Boom. Hit me with the next one.
Short, sweet, to the point.
Love it.
Do instances past 10 years old, 10 years, hold more or less weight? Do instances, okay, I'm
Oh, for
tracking.
like clearance?
So, yeah, I don't know if it would be clearance or for moral. So I think it would be something
Yeah,
that happened.
probably
I
more
would
for
assume it was something that
morals.
happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Does it hold more weight
Yeah, that's
or
what I'm
less
thinking.
weight?
Usually, I mean, I'm not a squadron commander, but just in my experience, the timeline definitely does make a difference. If you can
Sure.
show that you had this happen in your past, that you're not that person you were back then, that you learned from those mistakes, that you own what happened, you've matured, grown, now you're this different person who's
Yeah.
successful in society, that's going to make a
Mhm.
huge difference rather
Right.
than it happening last month.
Sure.
They mainly
Yeah,
look
that's a good
for
point.
repetitiveness. If you keep having the same instances, like DUI, if you keep having a DUI, okay, now that's like a repeat offenses. That's mainly what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Just like what Sarnef said, the older it is, you can learn from that. You can improve on yourself on those instances because we've all made mistakes and we've all grown, and that's what we really care to see is that you've grown, so you can go ahead and be a part of us and be a part of our team.
Yes, ma'am. It's that habitual piece of it.
Yep. 100% agree. All right, next one.
Yeah, you got to realize too, you know, a lot of these recruiters, even you know these squadron commanders, you know, we're people too. We were all once sitting in that recruiter's office asking the same exact questions. There's a
Yep.
lot of us who came in on waivers, all different types. Um, so there's a lot of sympathy
Yep.
there and a lot of understanding. So you're
There's
definitely
a
not
lot of
going to
human
be
element.
alone in those kind of situations.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Anyone who comes in our offices and they're willing to serve, how are we not willing to work for them, right? And want to like advocate for them. And that's what we try to do the best that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is that human factor. It's how can we just help you?
Yep. If you're cool, we want you on the team.
Yeah.
All right, let's get that next one. What about an ADHD diagnosis? Is that still a disqualifier to commission? 24 months? Medication? Is that it? I'm trying to remember. I think I was.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has a difference between an enlisted or officer.
So
but
that's going to be for the major, but it has a lot to do with age. It has to do with age, how long they were on it for, and how long they've been off it
I'm
for.
just
So
trying to see if I could throw like
let's-
brownie points to the major. Be like, am I getting this right? Was I paying attention last time?
She's going to
'Cause-
beatbox with me, not you. So get out of here. We'll
oh,
fight.
wow.
We're fighting.
Okay. I don't even get somebody in my corner. Man. All right, ma'am, take it away.
All right, so yeah, you get some brownie points because by the DOTI it is 24 months, right?
Okay.
So for
Nailed it.
ADHD, same standard for enlisted and commission, right? There is no difference for whether you're enlisting or you're commissioning. It really
Okay.
depends on how. So have you had accommodations, whether it be at work or at school? Are you on medications? How long have you been off of those medications? And then, do you have any comorbidities that go along with it? Do you have anxiety that goes along with it? Do you have ODD, so oppositional defiant disorder, that goes along with it? There's a whole slew of other diagnoses that can sometimes pop up with ADHD. But again, each case, I can't emphasize this enough. Each case gets looked at individually. So yeah, ADHD is, long story short, ADHD is a disqualifier at MEPS. So at your entrance exam, if you've had any sort of treatment within the past 24 months, but submit everything to the waiver authority, submit school transcripts, any copy of a 504 or IEP, or a letter from school saying you have one, an employer letter saying how long you've been employed and if you've had accommodations at your workplace, and any clinical notes and pharmacy records that go along with your ADHD diagnosis. All of that will be reviewed and you'll be you'll be determined whether or not you can join the Air Force.
Awesome. Solid answers.
And so, like, the reason for that, right, folks, is that it's why you're collecting all that information is it's not necessarily that you're proving you no longer have this situation, but you're showing the United States Air Force that this is no longer an issue for you, right? Like, it may have been in the past, but you either outgrew it or you no longer need it. And that's why all of that additional information is usually asked for. That's why a huge piece with the education records is that if you were a freshman and a freshman versus your senior year and you were on ADD medicine when you were a freshman, you were getting straight A's, and then come senior year, you were flunking all your courses. So clearly, perhaps you did need that medication. So it's to, again, I don't want to say the word prove because that's not the right terminology. Can I get a lifeline from my teammates? What's the word I'm looking for?
Sorry, I was busy trying to figure out why the studio was frozen, and I'm like, oh no, what are we doing?
Oh, the studio is frozen. I'm looking for help from them, and they're frozen. So,
I know.
right?
I'm gonna have to run in there and like just refresh or something.
Unplug them. Right.
I don't know.
The Matrix is in full effect, y'all. Like, Sergeant Smith, Sergeant Neff did not exist.
Or they are winning the statue game.
They're just one.
What was it? There was a, I don't remember what it was. There was like a thing going around.
Oh, it was the what was it? The shuffle. It was not the Harlem Shuffle. Was it the
like
Harlem
planking.
Shuffle?
It was like it was the statue
planking?
challenge.
Yeah. Well, they would
Statue
statue challenge, and then the music would come on, and everyone would just go crazy.
All right, how about this? Hey, Mike, see if you can find one that's got a little bit more of like a medical feel to it. We'll see if we can get Major to answer that one, and then maybe I can get you to jump over there and reset them and make sure that we get it back on. All right, so we're just gonna like improvise, unless if he goes in there and we see Mike walk in the background. Man, I have HFA, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obstructive sleep apnea. Would I still be able to join? Ma'am, that is 100%.
1,000,000%.
Yeah,
You got
all
this.
the way.
Well, I feel like after everything that I've said on the past show and this one, you probably got this, because once again, it really depends.
All I remembered was 24 months for ADHD medication.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. But honestly, going back to what I've said, it really depends on the clinical diagnosis, the current status, the prognosis of the diseases, right? So is this person still undergoing treatment? Are they stable? What current medications are they on? There's a whole lot of review that goes into those specific diagnoses. I can't 100% say no, and I can't 100% say yes. I have seen some waivers for some of those conditions. I've also seen them denied for some of those conditions. It really depends on person to person. I would say if you're currently being treated and you're not stable, your chances of a waiver are probably lower, just because we want to make sure that for lack of a better word, you're stable before you come in.
Sure. Cool. I don't think they were playing the game. So Mike saved us, ran into the studio, got everybody reset in there. So we should be good to go. You want to kick it back to what you were looking for from help for them?
I've already lost.
Perfect.
I've lost my train. The train has left the station. It's
Next
long
question.
gone.
We'll just jump into the next one. Do you have to pass the ASVAB in order to join?
Yes. We're just going to answer that across the board.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll just
100%.
hit it 100%.
What's the
And just for
non-waiver cutoff?
FYI, the minimum.
There it is.
Yeah, 31 is going to be our minimum score to enlist.
Perfect. All right. So if you're looking close at the screen or you're seeing this on a television, you probably can tell that we're having definitely a connection issue from the studio for where our tech sergeants are joining us from. So I'm probably not going to go to full screen. It's not because I don't love you guys and I don't want you to take the limelight, but I don't want it to be shown that I'm actually trying to film you with a potato in there and it's kind of pixelated. So I'm just going to leave it here. So we'll roll a few more questions, but until I see that picture clean up a little bit, we're probably just going to leave it in the quad for you guys as answers. With that being said, Sergeant Johnson, you want to take another one?
Let's hit it.
All right.
Is BAH, the basic allowance for housing, based on your duty station or where you live before entering MEPS? You guys tracking that one?
That's like a twofold, yeah.
It is a twofold, yeah.
Yeah.
Is BAH based on your duty location
Or where you lived
or where you
before
lived
entering.
before entering MEPS?
Anybody
So
can take that
yeah,
one.
it kind of depends
Yep.
on your situation. So if you're joining single with no dependents, whenever you do hit that point of your career where you're earning BAH, it would be provided based off the zip code that you currently are stationed at. If you're joining with dependents, and you need to receive that basic allowance of housing for your dependents while you're away at basic military training and technical training. It'll be for the zip code that you currently reside in, so it'll be your home address.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different answer for members that join the Guard or the Reserve. So members that join the Guard or the Reserve, your BAH is going to be according to the duty station that, excuse me, not your duty station, according to your zip code of where you live. And the reason for that is that our Guard and Reserve members, when they're going down to basic training or they're going down to tech school and they are receiving BAH, if they do have dependents, they'll be receiving BAH because sometimes they own homes, right? They're homeowners and they're going back to that home. They're going back to their home state. Sure. Or they have leases or lease agreements and they're, again, going back to their home state. So that BAH is a different question for our Guard and our Reserve. And that is according to the zip code that they have listed on their finance department.
Gotcha. That stuff is all information to me. So I really enjoy learning more about the benefits of Guard and Reserve stuff. I'm sure somewhere like my recruiter doesn't like that I hear that stuff because he sees me being like, what? Really? That's actually kind of cool.
So it's interesting, right? Because so if you go into active duty and you go into active duty Reg Air Force, you're not going to get paid BAH at basic training and tech school, right? It's not going to happen because all your housing is being provided for you. Sure. So why would you need basic allowance for housing?
Sure.
But our airmen that do go down to basic training and they do go down to tech school, they are going to be receiving BAH, even though that their housing is being provided. They are still sometimes homeowners or have those leases, and so that's something that those airmen need to make sure that they have reported to their finance department at their individual states and their units.
Yep, 100%.
Big deal because they're
you don't
going to
lose.
lose
you don't want to
thousands of
not get
dollars.
that money and then not be able to pay your bills. So.
And then it's a nightmare if they've brought over to a different fiscal, and it's tough to get
money
back.
Stuff. Ugh, you don't want to mess with it. That's why we got finance guys, super smart on this stuff. Yeah. Probably one of the favorite people that you're going to talk to for the first couple of years of your career. You spend a lot of times in the finance office being like, "Hey, help me understand this. Make sure that I'm good." And yes, make best friends.
Bribe them with cookies.
Do not bribe them with cookies. Kindly give them cookies in exchange for niceness.
How about knowledge?
There
Exchange
you go.
them for knowledge, for job knowledge.
All right, let's get to the next question.
How many steps do morale waivers?
Listen.
What a meatball! What a meatball I am! Oh my God, the Boston Italian is coming out. What a meatball! The morale waivers. How many steps do the moral waivers take? How many steps?
Is there a set number?
Yeah.
I think you guys are a mute.
So it really depends on.
There we go.
Oh, it's like that one. It's like that one reel. There was that one reel where it was like, if you have a best friend, send this to them because it's the most important thing, and it is. And then the reel ends, and you're like, no. We are just really struggle busing with this Wi-Fi today.
I think we should seriously call them morale waivers for the rest.
Morale?
I would like the major to start referring to them as morale waivers.
Morale waivers.
Morale waivers.
Well,
Molto bene.
wow, that is you. Wow, is it like just that much Italian?
Molto bene. I don't know.
Or are you just like a thing from Italian accent?
It's a little bit of both.
All right, you guys are back. You are muted. We'll take another stab at it. We're gonna go on to the how many steps.
All right, how we sounding over there?
I can hear you, but it's really choppy video, so I'm definitely good with audio. But we'll give it another shot.
Cool. All right.
Maybe.
So it really depends on the morals waiver, how many steps it takes, because you have, just like I said, you have morals waivers, medical waivers, things like that. Also, with the moral waivers, the different waivers that you have depends on how high of a level that it goes. Sometimes you just need your squadron commander to sign it. Sometimes you need your wing commander to sign it. It just depends on how high it is. So every moral waiver is different.
Yeah, just to kind of like walk you through what a typical waiver might look like. You tell your recruiter, hey, I need you to.
We gotta tell everybody to get off the Wi-Fi here.
I know, right?
Man,
and
I don't know. Maybe it picked up to the wrong one. Now I feel bad because it's like he doesn't know that I'm interrupting him.
Right.
But as soon as he hears me start talking, he's like, "Oh man, what?"
But
All
that's
right.
so rude.
I
right?
know,
That's-
I know. It's only like mildly less awkward than me just sitting
Can
here
you
being
hear
like, "Please, not very well,
Yeah.
not very well." I'm gonna wait until your video comes back. I'm gonna use that to. Oh no, that's back a little bit. Let's see if we can do like a super truncated answer, and if we can't, we'll just move on to the next question, and maybe we'll send in the IT team. Not doing great. Nope, that's it. All right, hopefully they're just going to reset. In the meantime, we are going to kick it back over to the questions. Let's pull one up. Peanut allergy waiver for pararescue. That is specific.
that is very specific.
Major, do you have us rescued for this one?
Well, so that's a two-part answer, right? You're gonna need two waivers. One is for the accession medical piece, and that'll just be for your general military service waiver. So peanut allergy, you're probably gonna need an oral food challenge, prove that you don't have the allergy anymore. And if that's the case, then and no EpiPen is recommended by the allergist, then chances are you'll get the waiver. Once you get that waiver, then you can try getting the waiver for the AFSC. That one, there has been some discussion about waivers for pararescue. That one I am not too savvy on, so I really don't want to give too much of an answer for that one. All I know is you'll need that secondary waiver, and that waiver actually does. Yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that. You'll need a
No,
secondary.
you're
waiver
right,
for
ma'am.
that one.
We haven't had enough to almost kind of like create that baseline for it. So you're right. It's a hard one to answer, a hard yes or a hard no for that.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like our guest or our audience member, our question asker person has already done a good majority of research, because if they know that there's a peanut specific requirement waiver for pararescue, they're probably experiencing something very specific to this. So I would say SW recruiter, right? Specifically get in there and ask that question. But yeah, nice job for being that in the minutia of some of the details of that. That's really well
And a
done.
big reason why additional waivers need to be happening is, especially when you start talking about the SWOE world, right? The Special Warfare Officer Enlisted. That's what SWOE is. When you start talking about that world, it's because they have to go to sister services. So it's not even the Air Force that's requesting those waivers or requesting that level. It's the other services that are requesting that, because they have to go to dive schools, free fall schools that belong to the Navy and belong to the Army. So it's not always just the Air Force looking for that info.
And I'll be back. There we go. Okay. I had to lean over and talk to the producer, so I muted my mic. We're really trying to fix our Wi-Fi issue in the other room because it's never been this bad during the show, so bear with us. In the meantime, we'll take one more question. Give me one that, like, I don't know, maybe we can try to take a stab at. Maybe we'll we'll give Major Catrine like 100 points, and she can divvy them to us based on quiz questions that she gives us for the answer. Unless it's that one. Will there ever be vegan MREs?
I love that one.
Kick that one up there.
I like that.
Will there ever be vegan MREs? Okay, so
a good question.
I'm actually pretty sure there's.
There-
I know
there
there's
has to be, right?
vegetarian.
There's
I know there's
vegetarian.
vegetarian ones.
But vegan,
Vegan MREs.
I don't know. I mean,
Ooh.
there should be.
All right, I'm gonna kick it to full screen. Major Catrine, you're on the hook here. You don't have to be super official. I just don't want anybody to see me while I Google this really quick, or make a phone call and find out, because I'm actually curious.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
anyone know?
Yeah. Does anyone know?
I don't know.
No
I don't have
idea.
it like
We
so.
got stumped. I'm
I've got-
happy about it.
I've got computer screens
I
for
would-
days here, but none of them are.
I would say
connected
I
to
would
the
venture a
internet.
guess that a few years ago there probably wasn't. I am not entirely sure if that's the case now. My gut is telling me no. But that is just my gut.
I mean,
Don't know.
I mean, do we have like halal and
I'm looking. I'm scrolling as fast
Yeah,
as I
but like
can.
so if you got that specific on the MRE, then how many do you actually make? And
right?
I mean, how do you know? So MREs, right? They're supposed to go to the forward deployed locations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know? Like, when you're getting deployed, you're like, hey, I only want vegan MREs. So then the distributor is like, okay, for this specific shipment, I have to include X number of vegan MREs. Like, that's a lot for a forward operating base. So that's why I'm thinking it's a no, but I don't know for sure.
So, like I said, I've seen vegetarian,
Yes.
and there's a quick life hack. If you're in the military and you haven't had the vegetarian one, or you join the military and are given the option, as weird as it sounds, obviously go and try the chili mac because it's fire if you're in that camp. Or the chicken pesto is also pretty good. But try the vegetarian one. It is actually incredible. It tastes better. The proteins in it taste better. And are they back? They look back. Okay,
missed
just
you
fingers
guys.
crossed. Let's not say anything. We're not going to jinx the Wi-Fi. But the vegetarian one comes with like the extra stuff in it is amazing. It typically comes with like a huge, like whatever the candy or dessert is. It gets a big version of that. It gets like a Ranger bar or some other stuff. So like it's 100% the move is go for that vegetarian MRE.
This is how your selling point. This is how we're selling. You're selling folks on the military. It's
Yeah,
like
because of the vegetarian meal in a bag.
MREs.
Absolutely.
We're over here talking waivers and, like, hey, we're looking for the best and the brightest, and we're going to lean into you if you lean into us. And your selling point is vegetarian MREs.
You know what?
I mean, whatever.
The first time I ever had one, if someone had been able to capture that physiological response that I had to eating an MRE that was vegetarian by label, and I'm a meat eater. I like steak and stuff, right? But I'm like vegetarian. I'm like, whatever, I'll try it. So I tried it. I was like, wow, this is actually really, really good.
Okay,
So it might have been a selling point
this is the
for
next
me.
question around the panel. What's the best MRE that you've had?
And
then?
we're gonna kick it to
Okay.
the studio to see how your audio is.
What do you got? What's the
Go
best
for it.
MRE that you all have had? Sergeant Smith's gonna be like, I never eat MRE. Get out of here with that nonsense.
Right?
Still not working great.
No.
Part security forces, I had to. It wasn't by
that's right, we
choice.
got to
I'm
see.
trying to
Oh,
think.
wrong
It's
badge.
been-
Yeah, it's been a while.
Right?
I
It's
just
been a
remember
while.
because I don't like chocolate. I'm weird, right? I don't like chocolate, so that was always my bargaining chip. Because I would hope
Would've
I'd get the
been great.
M&Ms, because then I could trade that for anything I wanted.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
The M&Ms
That's
go
true.
a long way.
Big time.
Yep.
Big time. I'm so old school. I actually, when I came in, we got like matches that would come in. Like I came in like 98.
Okay.
And like,
not while
oh.
we're still cigarettes in there.
Oh, well, they didn't have cigarettes in them, but they had matches for your cigarettes.
Okay, there you
right?
go.
So, yeah, so it was-
I'm just old enough in the Air Force to know the baby Tabasco bottles.
yes. Wait, they
and-
don't have baby Tabasco bottles
Not
anymore?
for a long time.
Oh, that's
Really?
heartbreaking.
Do they not have them
That
anymore?
was the best part of the chili mac.
I know.
That was the
I
best
had to
part.
start
I
bringing
don't
my
know.
own Tabasco.
Yeah. Sergeant Smith knows you had to cook. Remember, you cook your MREs right on top of your Humvee. Ooh, those were the best MREs.
Great for the
Humvee,
paint.
Humvee MREs were the best.
And if you had to
man.
accelerate it, you put
Yeah.
it in the pouch.
Yes, you weren't security forces. You did not eat an MRE off a Humvee.
I wasn't security forces, and I ate
Good
plenty
living.
of MREs off of Humvees.
It's good living. It's
All right,
good
that
living.
video's starting to look way, way better.
Yeah, you guys look great.
All right,
Those
so
beautiful smiling faces
let's-
now. Oh, here we go.
let's take advantage for the remainder of the show and see if we can point a bunch of questions their way while we got good Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Maybe it's because whoever was hogging it up left. Next question. I heard there's a weight waiver based on body fat percentage. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just increased it since we're on the topic of body fat measurements. So this is big right now. This is probably where I see a lot of the most misconceptions out there on social media. I had somebody yesterday, hey, I'm 8 pounds overweight. How long should I wait to go talk to a recruiter? Don't.
Right.
Go in right now.
Yeah.
Hurry. Because our body fat standards have never been more, I guess you could say, lenient. I think I'm pulling this off the top of my head. I want to say for males, it is 26%. For females, I want to say 30. Major Katrai might be able to correct me on that.
I forgot.
So yes, 26% for males, 36 for females.
36. There it is.
Yeah.
And this is why we bring the subject matter experts in here.
Yeah. And so it's not that the Air Force changed their standards by any means. That's not what it is. What the Air Force did is that they moved their standards to the Department of Defense standards.
Right.
So the
Correct.
Air Force had the lowest or the highest standards for weight.
Right. We have
And
the lowest
so
percentage.
lowest percentage
Yep.
or however that verbiage works. And so now they've changed it to all the Department of Defense. So it's not that we haven't minimized our standards. It's just we are
I
on
feel
equal
like-
playing fields with everybody else.
I feel like Mike was picking on me. He picked that one after he heard me just go
talking about fat
fanboy
kid. Yeah,
about
fanboying.
3,000 calorie MREs. I know, but I was trying to be nice to the vegetarian ones. But
You know, to your point,
all right.
Sergeant Johnson, we're doing that with a lot of different areas. We're just trying to get as close to that DoD line as we can.
Yeah,
Yep.
same thing with like tattoos, right? That's huge. I feel like we haven't even hit that piece, right? Like no one's
Right.
even talked about that within there. But tattoos is huge, right? Like I remember when I was coming in, again, aging myself, but you know, coming in back in the day, you know, tattoos were an absolute no-go.
Yeah.
And now, you know, it's, you know,
You can waiver a ton.
you can waiver a ton. You can waiver a ton of
Before you
tattoos.
even need a waiver, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure before you even need a waiver, you can go all
Right
the
to
way
the
to the
wrist.
wrist, all the way to the ankle, and then all the way to the, what is it, 2 inches below the base of the collar or something like that?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like you
Yeah,
And,
it's about-
and you can
yeah, I
technically
mean, I'll
have,
take it
what is
take
it,
it
a
a
quarter
step
size,
further.
guys? Is it a
Yeah.
quarter size
Take
on
it a
your
step
neck?
further.
Yeah, so you can have up to an inch tattoo, so an inch in diameter on
Okay.
your neck. Right, so that's behind the orifice of the ear.
Yeah.
For the hands, you can also have an inch tattoo on your hand to include a ring tattoo, and then we can waive up to 25% of your hand. All right, so
Yep.
you can have up to 25% of each hand tattooed and receive a waiver, and
So
the
you can
approval
come
rating
in-
for those are pretty high.
Yep.
So you can come in with a ring tattoo, like a wedding band tattoo, and you don't even need a waiver for that. That's
No.
that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I don't know how much that would have really changed because I have some tattoos, and I was like, yeah, once I'm in, blah blah blah. Like, I'm not going to tattoo anywhere I'm not supposed to, but like, I had all these plans, and they're still really cool artwork, but I haven't really enacted a whole bunch of them. So, but yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that are prohibited or that were prohibited back in the day from serving just because of the position of their tattoo. But yeah, it's crazy.
Sergeant Stern is going to wait until like, he can do forehead ones. So it says like the king of PA, right?
Mike,
No.
please put the next thing up on the screen. I can read anything.
He doesn't like it.
I
Just pick it up.
I just applied, and I'm going to need a waiver for self-harm in high school. Never went to the hospital or was diagnosed. It was just a mistake and the cool thing to do in high school. Well, it's still not the cool thing to do, but I kind of understand what you're saying. I mean, if I feel like this is a time thing. How long has it been, right? So we'll kick it back over to what you guys were saying about the kind of behavior once it's identified, and if there are any other. Oh, man, what was the? There was one that you used. I forget what it was, and I don't know the verbiage like you do. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys now.
No problem. I think you were leaning towards comorbidities, that word.
That's it. That's it.
Which, yep. Which essentially means, do you have any other diagnoses that go along with the original diagnosis, which would have been self-harm? So for self-harm, we are seeing an uptick over the past couple of years of this diagnosis in our high schoolers, and it seems to have become like this fad or this peer pressure thing.
Sure.
So long story short, yes, you can absolutely get a waiver for self-harm. We understand that nowadays self-harm doesn't necessarily mean that you're depressed. It doesn't mean that you had uncontrolled anxiety. It doesn't mean that you want to kill yourself. In some cases, yes, but not always.
Sure.
So for self-harm, if it was year plus ago, a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, if it was when you were freshman in high school and now you're graduating college, if you are upfront about it, if you recognize that it was a mistake, if you haven't done it since the original incident, chances are you can probably get a waiver. We will likely get some sort of consult from a psychiatrist or a psychologist just to make sure that there's no other underlying condition going on and make sure that you are stable right now. It is protocol, so do not take offense if you are requested to get some sort of consult because you have a history of self-harm. It's just to make sure that you are doing great. And if you're proven to be doing great, like if the consultant says that there's no other underlying pathology, then I would say your chances of a waiver are decent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to
Major, thank
piggyback
you
on what
for.
Major Contreras said, sorry,
I was
just
just
to
gonna say,
piggyback.
Major.
There's a delay between the two, so
There's
somebody's
a
gonna
delay.
have to just be like, "Go for it." So, studio,
I'm
why don't
taking
you
it.
guys take it?
Hey, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. All right. So just to piggyback on Major Katrine, that honesty is so important.
Oh, you stole
don't
it. You stole it from me.
Yeah,
That's what
don't
I
be
was
the
He was gonna
person
You
take
got
who
it.
comes in saying, "Hey, it was a scratch from a chicken wire, or I got in a fight with my dog."
Mhm.
the doctors can see through those lies, and it would only hurt your chances. So with all waivers, just be upfront and honest as much as possible.
Yeah, she hit it. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
Make sure that you're being upfront. That was the key word in that. Do not lie on these applications.
Yeah.
Do not. These are official medical records. These are a part of your official entry into the United States Air Force. Do not lie. Make sure that you're being upfront and honest about those pieces, because exactly what Sergeant F just said, the docs are going to see right through it.
Yep. All right, let's pick some good ones. We probably got about 15 minutes or so left. We'll see what we can get in that amount of time.
I'm just going to keep harassing you.
Thanks. All right, you can take this one.
All right, I passed the SWOE IFT, which is the initial fit test, but I had a stroke during the event. Oh my goodness, that is, sorry to hear that. Doctors say it was due to a neck injury, and I am fully recovered. The Air Force waiver guide says that my type is waiverable. Is that valid? Well, if the Air Force waiver guide says my type is waiverable, I would pursue that further. That would be my recruiting advice to you. Let's see what the major has to say about that.
Well, I'm glad you are
That is the
recovered.
crazy. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Thank goodness.
Yeah, so that's really good. We would need to see the med docs. We would need to see what the course was, what your treatment was, and how your recovery was. Even though it says it's waiverable, each case is completely different, and each case needs to be reviewed individually before we can say yay or nay.
Where would you point them exactly to present that, or where would be their next best step to take that question?
Just back to the recruiter. I mean, if they were already in a SOA, if they were in the middle of a SWOE IFT, they were already working actively with a recruiter, so they're in the system. So I would go back to that recruiter, providing all of those medical documentations, saying, "Hey, I no longer. This was the situation," and advocate for themselves and advocate their case for themselves.
Yep.
And then have asked their recruiter to push forth through the medical waiver process.
Yeah, and something else that's important to consider is if you don't feel like the relationship you have with your particular recruiter is working, you can go find another recruiter. So if it's something where you feel like it's just a personal thing and you can find a better way to do that, you can jump back on and find another recruiter that can, if you feel like that's the way to go, sometimes that can be an option. So don't write us off completely, but know that you don't have to get stuck with one person. You can keep going until you just vibe better with somebody. Right. So next question.
And the recruiter answer
go
I'll
ahead.
give to that. Every recruiter has a boss, right? Or the flight chief. If you're not getting the feedback or the customer service you need from that recruiter, just ask to talk to the flight chief. They all have business cards as well, usually in their recruiters' offices, and they should be able to show you the light. And if you do want to work with another recruiter, more than likely it's going to be for that flight chief. That same flight chief is going to be responsible for that other recruiter, so you're going to have to talk to them anyways to get that coordinated.
Sure. That's actually a really good point, because I've said that before on the show, but I've never done the flight chief thing, and that's actually a really good point, because I know a lot of times it's like sometimes I can see the recruiters on there be like, "Thanks, dude, don't call us out like that." I'm like, it's not a personal thing. It's the purpose of the show, right, is to help people who are interested in joining find the way into yes. And sometimes if they're like, "Yeah, well, my recruiter doesn't listen to me," like sometimes you can't really get past that personal interference, right? And it's really difficult. And you may just go in with the wrong attitude, or they may just have the wrong attitude. Maybe you just need to reset and have your story heard by somebody else. And that flight chief is a perfect opportunity to reset those cards and maybe get lined up with somebody who is maybe from the same part of town you are, maybe from like a different background, or maybe you just see eye to eye on something a little bit differently or a little better. Because we're all, we are all human, but if you're, like we said earlier in the show, if you're persistent, if you keep chasing down the avenues to success, we'll help you get there. So next. Is there a waiver for age? I'll be 39 in November, and I don't think I'll be able to apply before then. Well, you better apply right after then, because you don't have much longer after 39.
No, honestly, we just increased our age. So instead of 40, it's now 42. So that's in the works of being written into our regulations.
Is that in effect right now?
Yeah.
That is not officially published, but we are running with it.
Y'all heard it here.
Wow.
Okay, keep your eyes out for it.
So
And
if you're 39 years old, like you said, move quick. Move
Yeah.
as fast as you can, because you never know what obstacles may be waiting for
Yeah.
you. You may need a medical waiver that may take a little bit of time. You might need a
Mhm.
morals waiver. Normally,
Yeah.
with our older applicants, there's a lot more life that's happened for you than has happened for an 18-year-old,
Sure.
and that usually means we got to work through a few more things to get you through the wickets. So
Yep.
start now, because you never know how long it might take. You want to get
And
that
over
in before.
40 physical. Yeah, over 40 physicals at MAPS is a nightmare.
Yep. I
It's
can
a
imagine.
nightmare. Even if you are in pristine health, cholesterol is going to be your worst nightmare for those over 40 physicals.
Yep. I joined in my mid-20s, and I remember I was in the delayed entry program, which is where they like wait to get you to go for quite a bit longer than I thought I was going to be while I was waiting on the job. So, and it was just like one of those things where I was like, yeah, I mean, obviously, once you're in and you've sworn in and all that stuff, like you're good, but you want to be moving toward that answer and toward that recruiter very quickly, because that time will come up quick. The days go by fast when you're running errands and collecting documentation and all that stuff for your recruiter. So. Next question.
So that's the same thing on the officer side as well, as far as the age waiver. So we do have those as well, depending on what category. Like if you want to go rated, cutoff is 33. But if like non-rated, cutoff is 39. So you'll be good to go. But overall, there is a waiver.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, there's subtle differences all across the board when it comes to joining as an officer and joining as enlisted. There are some bigger differences, but yeah, make sure that you're selecting that particular recruiter or asking the recruiter that you run into if they're an officer recruiter, and if they're not, they'll put you in contact with one. All right, let's try again, Mike.
Is eczema on a case-by-case basis? And what can happen if it flares up at OTS? Like, will they send me home?
Major Catrine.
Okay, so yes, eczema is case by case. Each person who is diagnosed with eczema gets treated differently. Granted, there's a general guideline on how eczema is treated, but each person responds differently. So yes, totally case by case. If it flares up at OTS, I don't know for sure if they're going to send you home, but I will tell you that they're going to have you go see the doc at the MTF at Maxwell, and beyond that, they'll treat you. I'm not entirely sure. I guess it depends on how severe the flare up is, but I'm not entirely sure if you'll get sent home at that point.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. We're getting a lot of ones on skin conditions today. And it's kind of fascinating. I started us off with, is pseudofolliculitis barbae a skin condition? I think it is, right?
He just shows off with trying to say that, y'all.
No.
You
I
guys
just
know
told
that,
somebody.
right?
I just told
It's like
somebody.
no one else can say that. Maybe the major can.
Y'all can all say it. I guarantee it.
Oh God, he's so frustrating.
I just made a promise that I could say it 6 times during the show.
Who let this guy have a mic? Seriously,
I've been asking myself the same question for a while.
man.
All right, let's do another one. Any PTSD waivers ever been approved, or should I give up? Don't give up.
Don't ever give up.
I've been in the process for almost a year now, and I really want this. I'm supposed to call MEPS tomorrow morning and go over my case. Well, good luck on your call, and I will let that go over to the professionals and see if anyone's ever been approved. I mean, I don't know, but don't give up. Like, absolutely not.
So yes,
Majors,
we
yep,
have given PTSD waivers before. It really depends on, again, what your disease course was, what your treatment was, and how far out you've been since stopping treatment, how your stability has been. Have you had any recurrent symptoms? Do you still experience certain symptoms when you're in triggering circumstances, right? So if crowds get you a little bit more anxious, are you still experiencing those types of symptoms? Like I said, don't give up. Yes, we have given waivers for PTSD. I don't know the exact percentage, but it really, again, case-by-case situation. So we just have to review your documents and see if you are eligible for a waiver.
Gotcha. All right. Sergeant Johnson was looking at, she saw one that was being scrolled past, and I think she was trying to look
So
for it. What did it say? Did you
There was
catch it?
something about the Air National Guard.
Oh,
So
did
I
you
was
see one
trying
about
to-
Air National Guard?
I did. I just saw
No,
ENG.
I don't
so.
see it. I don't see it. All right, let's. I'll send Mike to go look for it, but we'll pull up another one in the meantime.
All right. Are we able to appeal a disapproval of a waiver?
Yes.
Yes, in
Yeah.
all cases, there's an appeal process for all types of waivers.
So yes, 100%. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy
Easy.
ones. Love those ones.
You need like a knock it out of the park sound effect.
Let's just do it for all like less than 5-second
Yeah.
answers.
I need the major to do that. I think the major she should be our sound effects, right? The
How
major.
good are you at baseball sound effects?
Come on, man, let's hear it.
Can I get
Not
like
great.
the,
You don't want
the
me
Take
doing
Me
it.
Out to the Ball Game song? The only one since I was a kid that I could do like a great sound effect with a microphone. I will not do it here for anyone listening on headphones, which includes everybody in the studio right now. But you just like blow into the microphone really hard and then move your head away, and it sounds like a rocket taking off. Try it some other time, not when we're on
Not
the
right
air.
now, yeah.
But it's actually pretty funny. It sounds
Okay.
super realistic, especially if it's a good mic and you got some good headphones and they're turned up. Sounds like a rocket. It's pretty dope. All right. Sounds good. Hit me. I have hypothyroidism. It is it controlled with, and it is controlled with medicine. Got it. I can read. Is that still disqualifying? So, ma'am, back to you on the medical stuff specifically. Hypothyroidism, which is easier to say than pseudofollicular sparse.
Really? How many times?
No.
How many
That's
times
five.
you
How
gotta
many are you
get
up to
it?
now? You
Five?
up to 6?
That's 5.
He's like,
That's 5. All right. Go for it, ma'am.
So we have seen disqualifications come through for hypothyroidism. If it's controlled on Synthroid, depending on how long it's been controlled for,
Okay.
you can be eligible for a waiver.
Perfect. Everyone's just going to wait for that baseball sound
yeah.
right now. We're just
Oh,
going
wait.
to.
She should just do her own
Hang
baseball
out.
sounds.
That was good.
You got one?
That was great. That was great.
I don't
Sergeant
think
Smith,
we
you
have
want to
one.
be in charge of the baseball
No,
sounds?
no, not me.
Not me. Not it.
Not me. I was
Not
just
it.
saying it was good. Straight to the point.
All right. I think we'll do one more question, and then we're going to get out of here. Sergeant Johnson, you want to do us the honors?
Can you start talking to a recruiter if you aren't in height and weight standards? I think we answered this one, but we'll hit it again. Can you go to MAPS to do ASVAB first, or will the person need to be in regs first before testing?
That's a great question.
That is a great.
That's a fantastic
That's a
question.
great one to edit
and it's
on,
also
too.
specific, too. I like that.
Yeah, and so what's interesting about this question is it's not going to be the same for every recruiter. So recruiters manage a lot, right? They have a lot on their plates, especially depending on where they're recruiting out of in the United States. If you are not within height weight standards, if I'm in a very busy area, I might ask you, hey, here's a game plan to get you where you need to be. Let's work to get there. And then once you are there, let's move forward with the process. If I'm in a less busy area, I might have a little bit more time to invest into you and say, okay, let's go ahead and do all these other things while you're working on it. So it all really comes down to that recruiter, what the expectations are being levied upon them by their flight chief in order to get after the mission, the recruiting mission. And again, like Sergeant Johnson said, how much are you leaning into the process? For taking the ASVAB, there's a lot of easy ways to get after that. You can do the PICAT, which is the at-home version of the ASVAB. You don't necessarily have to go to MEPS to take the ASVAB. You can take the PICAT at home. That's a great way to see, okay, am I in the range of where I need to be test-wise? So that way, while I'm studying and getting test ready, I can start losing weight or gaining weight or whatever I need to be to get into standards. There's ways to tackle it strategically to make it work for everybody.
Cool. Solid answer. All right. I saw you scrolling. You didn't have any save rounds for me over there? He says one last one. And he's just like this. He's like, please, let me get this one in. It's really cool.
Please, sir, may I have another?
All
Just
right.
a wafer, Fidman.
Take this one away from me.
Okay.
It's my gift to you for tolerating me for the past couple hours
You've
on
been
our
great.
first.
You've been great.
I need you to come back.
The first of many.
I'm not going to lie.
It's only gonna get more abusive to him. What is the number one tip for basic military training? BMT.
Go around the room, yeah.
Around the room.
Take
Let's
us
hear
first,
it.
yeah.
Number one tip: be mentally and emotionally prepared. Know that you are going to go on a journey, right? Like you didn't just wake up and automatically become an airman. It's going to take that 7 weeks, right, to be developed. And be easy on yourself and give yourself a little grace. You're learning, and that's the whole process of it.
Yep. Major, I'll let you go first because I gotta take the highest ranking officer out because they have a tendency to just sweep the floor when everybody's done. Yeah. And I'm gonna give the tech sergeants a chance to like set that bar, and I don't want you stealing their thunder. Words of wisdom, and it can't be about cookies or MREs.
Dang it.
Baseball sounds.
Or baseball sounds.
So I would say just start getting in physical shape. Just from a medical standpoint, you got to start being active. You can't be sitting at home just watching TV or just trying to relax and, just take advantage of your last few days before you go to BMT by just being in a vegetative state, for lack of a better term. Get out there, start moving, go slow. You don't need to, if you've never ran before, you don't need to go out there and run a marathon. Please don't do that because you're going to injure yourself, right? So take it slow. Do a small program that works yourself up to running a couple of miles. It would be nice if you could run a couple miles every day, but if it's every other day, then great, right? So just try to find a exercise plan that will get you active and start building up your strength before you get to BMT, because you don't want your first mile that you run to be at BMT. You don't want your first 5 push-ups that you ever do to be at BMT, right? That's recipe for injury. So just try and build yourself up through physical activity before leaving for BMT.
All right. Sergeant Smith, you're up.
I would say learn from the experience. A lot of times you're going to meet so many different people from around the world, different cultures, different ways of life, things like that. Learn from those experiences that you have in basic training, because some of the people that you meet in basic training, they're going to be with you, if you were to stay in for 20 years, those are still going to be your friends. So learn from those experiences. I always say have fun. Of course, sometimes you may not feel like you're having fun, right? If you're being yelled at or, it's stressful. It can be stressful, but also sit back, enjoy the experience, learn from the experience and the people that you're around.
Yep.
I love that answer.
That's great. Sergeant Neff.
Yeah, so every time I get an opportunity to interact with a military training instructor, I ask them the same exact question, right? Because they're getting what we're giving them, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that we're setting them up for success and setting you, the future airman, up for success. And the number one thing, it's always fitness. Please try to get as physically ready as you can, like Major Catrine said, before you arrive. Emphasis on the taking it slow. I think that's a great point, Major Catrine. But do something. Get yourself as close to ready as you possibly can. BMT will take care of the rest. But that fitness part, that takes time, right? It takes a little bit more preparedness than everything else.
Yep. I'd say get your family to write those letters. I know it's a little archaic, but there's something cool, and you're gonna find yourself resorting back to very basic needs, right? Because you don't have a lot of luxuries when you're in basic training. You don't have access to your phone and stuff like that nearly as much as you did before. You won't have access to TV and all kinds of entertainment. You'll be focused on the task at hand. They're going to make sure that you have a difficult time doing anything else, and you're going to get really, really good at what you do, and you're going to get good at it fast. So that's going to take you back to a super basic version of you. And there's something incredibly cathartic and refreshing about reading letters from home, and you can hold on to that, and you can keep that in your area, and you can remember that and read that. And when you need that little bit of strength, having words from home, and it's something that we don't really think about anymore, but to read that on paper or to see that picture is just enough sometimes to help you be like, I got this, I can do this. So capitalize on that. Mm-hmm. Talk to your family, talk to your support network before you leave, and make sure you got people holding you up from the home front, because you're going to rely on them until your military family steps up, and then they're going to take the reins, and I promise you they're going to change your whole life. So.
I still have my BMT, all my letters from 25 years ago.
Yep.
Every last one of them. Every family member that wrote them to me, and it became as Sergeant Smith was saying, all of these experiences and being, I remember sitting in the back bay, and we would read the stories, because I do come from a crazy Italian family, and so they really are, and so and my mother would tell these really, really detailed stories, and so all the kids, we'd all be in the back bay and be like, yo, so what did your cousin do this week, and what happened this week, and and it just brought us all together, and you're right, have those family members bring, give that support, and send those letters. It's huge.
Awesome. Well, Senior Master Sergeant Johnson, I truly appreciate you taking the leap of faith, jumping on the show with me, and enjoying a little bit of time talking to some of, hopefully, the next generation of airmen out there. To our guests, our subject matter experts, bringing us a wealth of knowledge for all things waivers, all things recruiting, and all the stuff in between that we'll be able to get to this afternoon. Thank you so much, Sergeant Smith, Sergeant Neff, and Major Catrine. You guys are invaluable to this show, so I really appreciate you taking time and hanging out with us and bearing with the connectivity issues and seeing how creative we could get when we lost those signal feeds. So thank you so much. To everybody out there on the internet, please just take these questions as far as you like, bring them every time. Every time we have this show, bring the questions, talk to your recruiters, get your recruiters involved, challenge your recruiters to have good questions for us. You know, like we'll get as crazy as you guys want us to. We've even told people that we'll be at your graduation from basic training. So like if you engage with us on that level and you bring it back and we can tell you're getting something out of this, tell us, be in the comments, be in the questions, share this with your families and friends. And let everybody know if you're interested in the Air Force, this is a really cool resource. So until next time, which is in 2 weeks on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, that is when you can find us. Check out all the other stuff on Facebook, Instagram. Go find that 1-800 number, use the QR code, talk to a recruiter at airforce.com, all that other stuff. Until next time, pseudofolliculitis barbae.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Back and Forth, brought to you by Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. It is a privilege for us to bring you all the information and insider insight into the exciting world of the United States Air Force. Remember, this show is all about you. We want to make sure we're providing you information and answers you need to make an informed decision about your future. So make sure to join us every other Tuesday with your questions, your feedback, and any ideas you have for future episodes. We are all ears. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for even more exciting content. And also visit airforce.com for all the latest information on serving as a Total Force Airman. And with that, until next time, aim high.